Did you get 1340? And approximately 89,333. For all of these, remember to put 3 decimal places and truncate, which means just cut off the rest of the decimals. The normal rounding comes when we're dealing with the quota. Here, we're just cutting off at 3 decimal places. What do you do with the 89.333? Divide all of your states. 145, 270. For filter for German. Okay.
Oh yeah, basically already not won't be here for future.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, it would cost a tour, like for going on trips to the
You tell me if this is what you're getting. This divisor. Same start for every one of these methods. Determine your total, divide by the number of representatives, take your divisor and divide each of these to get this. On your formative assessment or summative assessment, I'll have columns set up for you so you'll know that you're going to be trying something twice. So we apply the normal rounding to this. What do you round 1.623 to?
2.
That's going to go over here. That'll be 3, that'll be 5, that'll be 6. Add that up. And that is 16. But what do we need? We need 15. So we're going to change the divisor, and I will tell you to change your divisor to 92. Redo your quotas. Use the populations again, but this time divide by 92. For our tests, I'm going to tell you what the new divisor is. Or maybe I'll tell you subtract this much from the old divisor, or add this much to the old divisor. How that's determined, I have no idea. Probably in a congressional committee, they figure out, we're just going to bump it up so much every time, and until it works, keep bumping it up. That match up with your totals. Apply normal rounding to that. 1.576. Where does that go? Up to 2. This will still go up to 3. This will still go up to 5. But what about 5.434? Down. That gives us 15. That's what we want. 2, 3, 5. Webster's method was used periodically throughout U.S. history. In between are Jefferson and Adams and the last one. What's the last one's name? Huntington Hill. Up until this point, politicians have been figuring out the rounding. Yep.
How did you get the mean divisor?
That, we just, in another class, we just kept bumping up this number until we got something that worked. For your tests, I'm just going to tell you what it is, or I'll give you a formula to get to it. How that's determined is up to whatever government is dealing with that. Up until this point, politicians have been figuring this out. We know, you've heard of Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. Webster, I'm not quite sure where he fits in, but he's another politician. Then, I think at this point, then they started getting mathematicians involved. Mathematicians.
Teachers, at this time, please send all of the students to the auditorium who are receiving an academic award. If you have not released them yet, please release them at this time. Thank you.
They're gonna make it a little more complicated. Geometric mean. Have you heard that before? Probably not since geometry. Above this, write down this. Square root n times n plus 1. Well, where's the n coming from? The n is coming from, I'm going to put it right here. It's going to come from this column. And only column we're going to need to divide up is this one. So you're going to get a number in here eventually. And since it says lower quota, that means that we're going to bump it down. Whatever that number is, you add 1 to it and multiply it by itself and do the square root, and that'll give you a new number. And then we're going to do something. Let's put in 380. So 40, 105, 55, and this time our last set of representatives is 22. So begin like you always begin. Figure out your total, figure out a divisor, figure out your quotas. 3 decimal places and cut it off. Probably next class, which is Tuesday, because you have Monday off. We'll have 5 apportionment questions, and that'll be a formative assessment. You'll be able to work in groups. You'll be able to use your notes. If you're getting a different decimal, let me know. Since this is asking for a lower quota, we bump these down. So 10.7 becomes 10, 6.7 becomes 6, 2.9 is 2, 1.5 is 1. We don't need to add those up. We're going to do our adding up. Let's see, divide up allocations and put it there. We're going to save our adding up until the last column. All that you just did is just to figure out n. Well, if each one of these is a separate n, and I'm supposed to do n plus 1, what's the n plus 1 for 10? And I'm supposed to do the square root. So go ahead and do the square root of 10 times 11. And give me 3 decimal places. 488. Now, the reason these mathematicians, or I think they were actually university professors, did this by incorporating the 10 and the 11, you're kind of looking at the lower quota and the upper quota at the same time. And somehow that is supposed to make the differences between big states and little states less. I don't have enough mathematics to show you exactly why that works, and that's why these people make the money they do. So what do I do with 6? What's the n plus 1 for 6? 7. The n plus 1 for 2 is 3. The n plus 1 for 1 is 2. Don't forget the square root. That's usually where a mistake is made. People multiply and then they don't know what to do with it. The square root gets us back to numbers like this. If you're not getting these numbers or you're having problems with the calculator, see me when everybody's doing their reading. We saved this last method for last because it's the most difficult because of this extra step. You now compare your quotas to the geometric means. Is 10.71 more or less than this? We're going to bump that up to 11. So if these are more than this, we bump it up. If it's less than the geometric mean, we bump it down. It looks to me as if all of these are bigger, right? So all of these get bumped up to 7, to 3, to 2. Now we do our addition and see if this works. It's not going. 10, 21, 23. What do we need? We need 22. What was our quotient? Original 35.454. So we got to revise this. Go ahead, see if you can redo this with the new divisor. What do you do with that? Go back to the beginning, divide these up, put in your new quotas. You don't have to change the lower quota or the geometric mean because the 10, the 6, the 2, and the 1 turn out to be the same. But you are going to get different quotas, and you are going to have to compare them to the geometric mean. So do that first. Instead of dividing by 35.454, divide by 37 and put in your new quotas. How many of you have used Microsoft Excel spreadsheets? Who is not? Before the end of probably the semester, we'll go to the lab and we will put this into a spreadsheet and let it work it out itself. We'll put formulas in little cells within the spreadsheet. Before you leave high school, you should know how to at least put in really basic functions into a spreadsheet, or know how to read a spreadsheet if you're presented one in a business. Chances are, if you work in any sort of business, any sort of corporation, you're going to deal with spreadsheets. I had 10.270, 6.486, 2838, 1.486. If I use a lower quota on those, I'll get 10, 6, 2, and 1. So I don't need to change that. Therefore, the n plus 1s are the same. Therefore, the geometric mean is the same. Now, compare the new quotas to the geometric means. Is 10.270 more or less than 10.488?
Less.
Less. So we're going to bump that down to 10. All of the rest, they're more than. So we're going to bump all of those up. They're all going to stay the same. That's our final answer.
The lowest one has never changed.
Possibly. The ones I'm going to set up for you, no. I'm going to make sure that. But yes. Especially if you don't know exactly what the new divisor is, you're going to be trying to work your way to that number. So I'm more concerned you know how to deal with that, and then what do you do with these two once you get them. Since 1911, the Huntington Hill or the Webster method has been used. Sometimes they'll send both pieces of information. They'll do the Webster one, and then they'll do this one. They'll send it to Congress, and they'll figure out which one they would like to use. Since the 40s, only this one has been used. But eventually, Congress, if Congress has, how many representatives right now? 435? If Congress decides that there's enough more people in certain areas of the nation and they want to bump it up, they're going to have to use some method. Chances are they'll go to this one first. We will see. Those are your 5. Next class, you'll have formative assessment, working groups, open notes. Is there anybody who was not here for the previous 3 who did not get the worksheet for those 3? I'll get that to you, and you can get notes from somebody. Second thing today, band numbers video. Do the videos show up on tests? No. But could be an extra credit problem.